Welcome to Money Talks with Cathy Yang, your intel on the Philippine markets and the economy. In the headlines, sweeping duties on Canada, Mexico, and China. U.S. President Donald Trump says the tariffs go into effect on March 4. The Philippines' trade deficit widens in January. PLDT sees a 21% profit increase in 2024. And if property sales were votes, who wins? Colliers tells us why elections bode well for condo sales. $25% U.S. tariffs on Mexican and Canadian goods will take effect on March 4, along with an extra 10% duty on Chinese imports. U.S. President Donald Trump made the announcement in a post on Truth Social. Trump claims Canada, Mexico, and China failed to curb the flow of illegal drugs in the U.S., particularly fentanyl. The U.S. already delayed tariffs on Canadian and Mexican goods for 1 month, while a 10% tariff on Chinese goods is already in place. In a meeting with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, Trump says in addition to Tuesday's duties, the U.S. will push through with reciprocal tariffs on April 4.
The drugs continue to pour into our country, killing hundreds of thousands of people. We're losing substantially more than 100,000 people. I mean, dead. They're dead. The families are destroyed after that happens. The drugs come in through Mexico. They come, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them come from China. And that's why we did that. I think you're going to see, eventually you're going to see drugs stopping, because the country should not be allowing those drugs to come into the United States of America, and we're not going to allow it to happen. So that goes on the 4th of March. And then on the 2nd of April, we have reciprocal tariffs. That's reciprocal, where we charge countries what they're charging us.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau asserts Canada is also experiencing the fentanyl crisis, while Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum vows to protect the trade treaty between Mexico, Canada, and the U.S.
The tariffs that the president speaks of for next week are centered around the fentanyl crisis that they're facing in the United States, but that we are also facing in Canada. And like I said, if on Tuesday there are unjustified tariffs brought in on Canada, we will have an immediate and extremely strong response, as Canadians expect.
El objetivo pues es proteger el tratado comercial México, Estados Unidos y Canadá, y en ese marco pues ver qué acciones se pueden desarrollar para poder fortalecer las tres economías. Entonces llevan muy estudiados los distintos temas y ya ha habido conversaciones previas. Entonces espero que podamos llegar a un acuerdo y que, bueno, pues el 4 de marzo podamos anunciar otra cosa. Vamos a ver todo.
U.S. stock markets tumbled Thursday, investors remaining wary by Trump's new tariff threats. The tech-heavy NASDAQ nosedives by nearly 3%, and the S&P 500 declines by 1.5%. The Dow drops by nearly 0.5%. The plunge comes as the market absorbs tariff threats for the second straight session. Investors also worried about NVIDIA's narrower profit margins and sales in China, despite forecast-beating results. And here at home, imports and exports rose last month, according to preliminary figures just released by the Philippine Statistics Authority earlier this hour. Total exports for January 2025 amount to $6.68 billion, up by 11.6% from December 2024. Total imports stand at $11.6 billion, rising by 8.8% from the previous month. With these figures, the trade deficit has widened to $4.48 billion from $4.27 billion in December 2024. In corporate news, PLDT posted an attributable net income of over 32 billion pesos in 2024, marking a 21% increase from the previous year. The telco giant credits its strong performance to higher revenues, cost cuts, and gains in digital banking. Broken down, its telco core income climbed 2% to 35 billion pesos, while revenues grew 3% to nearly 217 billion pesos, driven by demand for data and broadband services. Meanwhile, its fintech arm Maya Group turned a profit in December, cutting losses by more than half to 1 billion pesos. Maya Bank also expanded its customer base, holding 39 billion pesos in deposits and lending 92 billion pesos in loans. PLDT President and CEO Manuel Pangilinan says with Maya now being profitable, PLDT is looking to acquire KKR and company stake to regain control.
We'd be keen to increase our stake, yes. Yes. So we'd be a buyer of whatever might be available. I do know they own about 30% or so of Maya, no? So whether they sell all of it, some of it, we don't know that. And so we'd be keen to buy all or part of their stake. So, because at the moment, PLDT and First Pacific together own about 40%.
Also spoke on the challenges in satellite services amid growing competition from Starlink and other satellite-based internet providers.
I think we can't compete with them. No, we're not a satellite company. We used to own one satellite, the only satellite this country ever had. So we will cooperate with them in whatever way we can. I think there are areas we can cooperate in the beginning because most likely the cost of their service is quite high. So, but they'll be useful in giving us two things: ability to penetrate what the government calls GIDAS, what is GIDAS? Geographically isolated, something challenge, remote areas. So they can give us access to that, no? So there's a direct to phone service of the satellite. No?
The Philippine stock market expected to rebound this year, driven by easing inflation and potential rate cuts. First Metro Securities' Ruben Angeles sees the PSEI reaching 76,000 or 7,600 by the end of the year. The index closed 65.28 in 2024, its first yearly gain since 2019. Analysts expect midterm elections and strong consumer spending to drive growth. Call Financial's April D. Tan sees foreign investments boosting the market. Meanwhile, Sun Life's Michael Enriquez predicts the PSEI at about 7,500, but warns of risks from a weak peso and global tensions. Analysts see little risk from U.S. trade policies, but tighter immigration rules could affect OFW remittances. Market reforms may also drive activity. Angeles says European funds may return following the Philippines' removal from the FATF gray list. For more on this story, check out Business World online. Well, we've talked a lot about how Philippine midterm election years typically bode well for the local stock market. But hear this, elections also carry a positive impact on condominium sales, says property consultancy firm Colliers. Well, with us now for more is Colliers Director of Research, Joey Roy Bondok. So good to see you here, Joey.
Yes,
Thank you so much
Cathy,
for joining
finally,
us. I know,
after all the pandemic
been
Zoom
such a long time.
briefings, yes.
And the last one was I think you were in Pampanga.
Yes, that was 2020.
We did a Zoom there.
Yes.
All right, so is that right? Election years are going to bode well for the property market.
Oh, definitely.
Specifically condo sales.
That's correct. Because right now, Cathy, what we're seeing in Metro Manila is a condominium slowdown in terms of a take-up. So we're seeing a lot of unsold condominium units, whether in the pre-selling or the ready-for-occupancy market, right? But we believe that elections will have a positive impact on condominium sales.
Interesting you say that because you got a chart here that you wanted to show
Yes.
us that it says presidential polls are a boon to condo sales.
That is correct.
We're not in a presidential election
Yes,
year, but
yes.
it is midterm election year.
That is correct, Cathy.
Would we have the same kind of reference?
Definitely. But if you look at this slide here, for example, if you look at 2019 was a senatorial election year. And as you can see here, there was a spike in condominium sales. Of course, you can attribute that partly also to the POGO demand. Note that 2017 to 2019 were very good years for the POGO market, and we saw sizable office spaces being taken up during that period. And 2019, pre-pandemic, was a very strong year for condominium sales. So it's a mix of the impacts of the midterm elections as well as the POGO demand.
So
Therefore,
if property
yeah.
sales were votes, who wins? Because that is the question I asked in the
again,
headline
if
there.
you look at our presentations, it appears that condominium prices increased their fastest during the term of President Duterte. But of course, again, you have to look at other policies. For example, it was during the Duterte administration that enabled the POGO companies to start operating within Metro Manila. And that has had a positive impact on condominium sales, office leasing. That's why we saw substantial increase in condo prices during President Duterte's term. In fact, Cathy, if I may add, from 2017 to 2021, the prices of house and lot-only projects in Davao region outpaced the prices of horizontal projects in Central Luzon, which covers Cebu. And that is also partly to the Duterte effect. And that is just the impact of a president or every administration. What the slide also indicates is that there is a lot of optimism. Whoever sits in Malacanang, and even if he or she is from the other side of the political fence, there's a lot of confidence and optimism into the new administration, and that is having a positive impact also on condominium sales.
But let's take a look at the POGO effect,
That is
because
correct.
that's something that we had in 2019.
Yes.
And that's something that's exited out of
That's
the
right.
markets
That's right.
this year. And that's
That's right.
having an impact on vacancy rates.
That is right.
That's at record levels. Apart from the fact that we got a key policy rate pause.
Yes.
Everybody wants a rate cut, so
Yeah.
everything's going to get cheaper for mortgages.
right.
But we got that in triple R cuts.
Yes.
The banks aren't really lending their money out to
right.
high risk investments, going for the low risk. So you've got the interplay of factors here that might affect the glut, or at least working off that glut that you're seeing in the property market.
That is correct, Cathy. Again, just to look at the POGO demand. The POGOs have left the country. And at one point, the POGOs occupied 1.3 million square meters of office space in Metro Manila.
That's just office space,
That's
not
just
even
the office space,
residential.
not the residential, covering about 10% of total leasable office space in Metro Manila in 2019. But imagine this scenario, POGOs leaving the Philippines, eventually vacating 1.3 million square meters of office space. Just for the office sector, we have 2.8 million square meters of vacant office spaces. And we project that it will take 7 to 8 years for those spaces to be fully occupied.
There got to be new demand drivers then. I mean, we've known the news for some
right.
time, so I'm
That's
sure
right.
that's come in.
Interestingly, Cathy, there are demand drivers. One company is Ascendion. Ascendion is into AI software engineering, and they are locating in Makati, opening their third facility in Makati CBD. And over the next couple of months, they will be locating in Cebu, outside of Metro Manila. And they will also be raising their total workforce headcount from 6,000 to 9,000. AI, of course, there are some sectors saying AI will challenge the lower value BPO services. What has AI resulted into? The proliferation of AI. You have deepfakes, data security breaches. These companies now that are providing data security, data protection, are proliferating. Data protection shared services are coming to the Philippines. So these are new entrants, new demand drivers that will likely help fill the void left by the POGO sector.
Now, before I let you go, and it fittingly into the weekend, I know that you've said that the resort-themed and the
That is
leisure-themed
correct. Yes.
developments are all the rage.
That is correct, Cathy. Because if you look at certain projects in Metro Manila, they are not doing well. If you look at the 21 million project, 21 million peso per condominium unit in Metro Manila, they are not doing so well. Take-up of 20%. And these were launched 2021, 2022. But when these developers go outside of Metro Manila, Batangas, you have the likes of Lanco, for example, DMCI. Lanco Spinnaker is doing very well. And DMCI launching in Benguet, resort, leisure-themed developments, Mega World into wellness, tourism, leisure destinations. You have the Brittany Group of the Villar Corporation. And these companies are taking advantage of the strong demand for resort leisure-themed developments. Why? Because they are also banking on the growth of the travel and tourism sector. After all, foreigners are allowed to own condominium units, 40%, that's a restriction, and are really banking on the huge potential of the travel and tourism. These developers are really betting big on these resort leisure-themed developments outside of Metro
Well, I'm
Manila.
seeing the white sands go there on the lead wall. It's asking me to go back to the beach. Thank you
Yes,
so
thank
much,
you,
Joey
Cathy, of
Bondok
course.
of
Yeah, my
Colliers
pleasure.
joining us here. Well, we have world news coming up. The FBI is saying North Korea was responsible for the theft of about $1.5 billion in cryptocurrency. Welcome back to Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang. Here are the headlines around the globe. The European Union vows to push back on Trump's proposed 25% tariff. A French spokesperson says the 27-member bloc will respond to the tariff threat if necessary. She adds the EU was not created to bother the U.S. after Trump claimed the bloc has been, quote, screwing the U.S. The European Commission earlier said it will reach firmly and immediately against unjustified barriers to free and fair trade. In the U.S., the Federal Bureau of Investigation accuses North Korea of stealing an estimated $1.5 billion in virtual assets from cryptocurrency exchange Bybit. The agency says it refers to this specific North Korean malicious cyber activity as, quote, trader. Bybit said last Friday an attacker gained control of an Ether wallet and transferred the holdings to an unidentified address. Bybit caters to over 60 million users worldwide. And in the Vatican, cautious optimism on the health of Pope Francis after officials say he continues to improve. But doctors have still given the Pope a guarded prognosis, meaning they do not think he is out of danger yet. One Vatican official believes Francis has already passed his most critical phase. The Pope has continued working from his hospital bed. On Wednesday, he created a commission to encourage donations to help address the Vatican's €83 million budget shortfall. Check on the Philippine markets and see how they're doing. The PSEI opening higher today by about 0.3%, as you can see there at 6,143. Trump's tariff threats pulling down the stock market, though, on Thursday by about 0.3%, so we're a tad higher at the open. The Philippine peso looking weaker at 57.98 pesos against the dollar. We closed at about 57.91. So it's a tad weaker as we speak in the first 50 minutes of trading. And the 10-year Philippine bond yield closed yesterday on Thursday at 6.11%. And joining us now for her insights is Cristina Ulang, the head of research, First Metro Investments. So good to see you, Tina. Welcome to the program.
Hello. Hi, good morning, Kathy. Thanks
Good
for
morning.
having me.
Yeah,
Morning.
I like what you vibered down to us yesterday when you said that it's going to be a lively fixed income market. So what confluence of events are you seeing with the way things are developing from now until March 4?
Well, that's for me, no. When it comes to the fund allocation, investors are asking where to put my money, and I would say depends on your risk profile. And if you're the risk averse type, then the bigger allocation should be in fixed income. And what's gonna drive fixed income is really this movement in the yield curve. We're seeing a steeper yield curve, and so the short end to belly is really vibrant and moving, creating opportunities for trading. And also the long end would be very rich in terms of the yield and the pickup that might happen if and when the government issues more debt. So it's going to be a lively market for fixed income, but the equities market is also showing opportunities in terms of fixed income like characteristics like those high-paying dividend stocks like PLDT, of course, the telcos, Meralco, and in terms of the bank space, it's Metro Bank, 4.8% dividend yield.
Well, let's take a look at the investor who's risk averse and take into consideration that Trump has made good his threat against Canada, Mexico, China from March 4th. How is that going to influence, you think, where fund managers around the world take their money next? And how is that going to impact the Southeast Asian space where we're at?
Of course, all of these strong dollar policies of the Trump administration is really helping to shore up the U.S. economy. So it's the prime destination for funds right now, and we're seeing the S&P 500 really peak at 6,100. But it seems that the recent data coming from the U.S. are all showing weakness. Home sales negative 10%, and consumer confidence also dipping low, and U.S. Treasuries are receding, easing off. And I think the peso is holding, no? It's holding against the currency against the dollar at 57.80. And so eventually, if we see further weakness in U.S. economic data as we are seeing now, there is this tendency among investors to like expect some slowdown in the economy, and that eventually the Fed, seeing the slowdown, could be prompted to be less conservative and then turn dovish, and hopefully this thing, dovishness and the weakness in the equities markets, really going to prompt some funds higher allocation here in Asia, where we're seeing the Philippines registering a 6.2% growth, which is the expected for this year, and corporate earnings 11%, 12%. And we are very much undervalued at only 10 times PE, one of the undemanding stock markets here in Asia. So maybe it's time for funds to start moving out of the US, and that's going to happen only if and when the data in the US are showing some weakness. And we are seeing a bit of that now. Although it's not yet a trend, but there could be some odds of
Central.
that happening.
Right, the Banco Central, held off cutting the key rate, but went ahead with a continuation of the triple R cuts. And then there's China finding that alternative market in Southeast Asia, as you made a mention. What do you think this will mean for the perceived inflation risk impact of Trump's tariffs and how we decide here as local investors?
The tariffs are primarily inflationary in the US. It's going to increase prices of automobiles, pharma, and semiconductors, computers, and then even vegetables and all the food that they import from Mexico and Canada. But the certainty of that is not yet fixed. Because it's very transactional in approach. Trump is very transactional, and it's all gonna come out of negotiation, and results of negotiations are very uncertain. And so the BSP is very defensive since the unknown, there is a fear of the unknown, the big unknown that's going to come out of this negotiation, out of this transactional playbook of Mr. Trump. So the BSP is very careful. Sorry, and showing us that they're not going to allow imported inflation to creep into the market by way of the weak peso. And so they have held off. But we are expecting still the BSP to really adjust the very restrictive monetary policy now, although they have made the triple R cut, which is set to ease the funding cost of banks and then improve the NIM. We're still seeing the BSP to do the rate cutting in the second half because the BSP rate cutting is very much intact, very much in alive. It's just a matter of timing because there is really this big unknown. It's fear of the unknown that is now moving the local market and a fear of losing money.
It's a pretty good bet. So we're going to take a look at that and keep watch. Thank you so much, Dina. Appreciate the time. Christina Ulang of
Thank
First
you.
Metro Securities. Extraordinary feat of an extraordinary woman. I was able to talk exclusively to Mench Dizon before she flew back to Singapore. She's the first Filipina to complete the World Marathon Challenge. That covers 7 marathons on 7 continents in 7 days. So here's an excerpt from that interview.
It was the most epic adventure ever. It's been on my mind to join this since 2015 when I first found out about it. So when it finally happened, it felt so surreal, but it also felt that it was the right time for me to be doing this adventure now that I'm in my 40s.
Why would you say it's the right time?
It's the right time because I guess I now have that financial flexibility to afford something like this. I also am a more patient person, so I don't need to be the fastest runner, especially running 7 marathons. So it's really just having the patience to do it 1 marathon at a time without having to burn myself out.
Yeah, but this is priceless. I mean, you got to show us what you brought home here. My goodness,
Yeah, all
it's a
the
lot.
medals.
I'm sure the customs people just kind of asked, are you selling?
Yeah, what
some
are
of
these
what are
metals?
Yes. So this is the one that you got in the World Marathon Challenge.
Yes, so this is the main medal,
Right.
and this is the completed medal after 7 races. But each of the races, you get 1 medal.
Right.
A medal in Antarctica, in Africa. So each marathon is a victory by itself.
It is, my goodness. So by the end of the trip, you were maybe 10 kilos heavier coming home here in
And
the
lighter
Philippines.
with all the running. Lighter body,
That's so true.
heavier baggage.
You know, those were really surreal pictures. I mean, just looking at the Antarctica round, I mean, that's where you got off from.
Yes.
The race starts in Antarctica and then ends in Miami.
Yes.
Imagine the weather shock
Yes.
that you probably started with and ended with somewhere sunnier
Yeah.
than
We were
probably
told to-
Boracay. What was that
We were
like?
told to prepare for negative 25 to positive 25. So that swing of temperature plus the varying time zones plus the travel time and lack of sleep in between is really a challenge by itself, especially coming from a tropical country without any intuition for the cold. It was Antarctica that was really quite daunting for me.
And also, they didn't tell you that it was going to be that cold, did they?
They did. They told us it might range from negative 5 to 25. And I don't know how to deal with negative 5 nor 25. So what I did was I tested my gear. I think that the important part in cold weather is really the layering. So I made sure to test my gear beforehand, whether I had the right technical materials, the right layering, and tried running in cold weather. The closest to Southeast Asia would be Japan in December. So that's where I tested my gear.
Right, I thought you went inside a fridge to test it.
I was tempted in an ice plant and just
did,
try
okay.
running there. That would have been an option.
She's got to be the Lady Forrest Gump of the Philippines. So inspiring. That is it for Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang. Catch us again Monday, 9:30 a.m. here on One News. Have a great weekend.